Hey guys, how y'all doing today? My name is Franchise Fanatic and welcome back to the channel. And today for you guys is another movie review. I literally have not moved since my Evil Dead 2 review. I literally hit record again as soon as I finished that one, so that's why I look the same. I don't live in this, okay? We're reviewing Evil Dead 3, aka Army of Darkness. Now this is the 4K Steelbook, I believe. I got this from Barnes & Noble. It's actually really freaking cool. I don't really know if you can see it too well, but it's got Ash with the chainsaw and the boomstick. You got Evil Ash. You got some knights, some Deadite skeletons, and then on the back you got Sheila as a Deadite, and then you have Ash from the end of the film where he's blowing up the whatever. This version also comes with the 4K Ultra HD theatrical cut, which is clocking in at 81 minutes. You got the Blu-ray theatrical, 81 minutes. I'll show you these actually. So those are the two discs, and then the last two are the director's cut Blu-ray, clocking in at 96. And the international cut / television cut is 88 and 90, respectively. So there you go. I'm not sick. I don't know why the hell I'm doing that, but I think it's a Deadite. I think I'm infected. But yeah, I watched the director's cut, obviously the longest version. So I'm like, yeah, you know, the longer version, yeah, why not, right? I mean, I'd rather watch a longer movie than a shorter version of it. But I think that there is a little stipulation with the canonicity, whatever. The canonness of it. It doesn't work. We'll get to it. But yeah, so Evil Dead 3, aka Army of Darkness, picks off much like how Evil Dead 1 ends and then Evil Dead 2 literally begins right after that. Same exact thing here. So you've got Army of Darkness literally taking place seconds after Evil Dead 2 ends, with Ash being transported to 1300 AD, and he's got to shoot that weird, janky-ass looking flying Deadite with the shotgun. And, you know, obviously they're filmed different. You know, he doesn't scream no in this one, so it's a bit different, but it's the same thing. So basically what you're getting here is really, if Evil Dead 1 is really, you know, straight up horror, and Evil Dead 2 was kind of Sam Raimi really trying to kind of make a horror comedy, this is him making an action comedy, right? I wouldn't even call Army of Darkness a horror movie. It still is rated R. It still has, you know, rated R things. It's still, in terms of blood and gore, there is violence, but it's more like Lord of the Rings violence than like Evil Dead 1 and 2 violence. You know what I mean? Like, there's still blood. There's literally one scene of blood where, like, I think Henry the Red or someone, like, they kick a guy down a pit, and the Deadite, like, shoots a massive blood geyser out. That's like the only time there's blood. And Sam Raimi really wanted Army of Darkness to be PG-13. I don't know why. That's stupid, because then you're alienating people that wanted to watch Evil Dead 1 and 2 because they're not 17 when they're 13 and they can watch this one. So I know parenting is out the effing window now. No one gives a shit what kids watch. But, like, that's stupid. So thank God it's rated R. And, again, this is really Sam going, hey, I like doing a horror comedy. Let's just make this one freaking comedy. And it works. And again, this is one of the only franchises I know. I haven't seen every horror movie ever. But still, this feels like a natural evolution, right? Like, you're going from horror to horror comedy to action comedy. And I think they really, really nail that aspect of, like, it doesn't feel goofy, or, you know, stupid, or cringy, or silly. It's not like, oh, this isn't my Evil Dead. My Evil Dead is scary. You know what I mean? Like, no, like, this is, it still feels like it's in the exact same world, right? There's still Deadites, and there's still blood, there's still an F-word, there's still, you know, sex jokes and all that. Ash is still making funny jokes, but it doesn't feel as gory or gruesome as 1 and 2. And, you know, that's obviously deliberate, but that's not a bad thing. That's not a detriment to the film. And I think that's really where Sam Raimi is like king as a director in this field, because he's able to understand, you know, how to do a horror comedy, how to do horror and how to do not really horror at all, but have it still make sense and have this trilogy still really feel, you know, the same and feel connected. And obviously you're getting, you know, Ash kind of, you know, doing the prophecy, I guess, you know, we're just kind of reliving that with the chainsaw and the boomstick and whatnot. A lot of memes came from this movie. A lot of, you know, really good one-liners from Ash came from this film. Obviously, you know, Bad Ash, you know, Evil Ash is you know, genuinely like a really good effect. I believe this came out in 1992. Yeah, 92. And, like, it obviously is the best looking Evil Dead, right? You know, like, you look at Evil Dead 1, it had like a $2 budget. I think it was like $300,000, which is freaking beans, you know, especially in the 80s. But they made it work. Evil Dead 2 had a slightly bigger budget, and this one has like a much larger budget. Like, there are some shots in here that, like, they genuinely feel like Lord of the Rings outtakes. You know, like long sweeping shots of massive armies and explosions and fire. it's like a really grand feeling movie. You know, it feels like an adventure. Ash is there, you know, in this big castle, swinging from ropes and sword fighting skeletons, and it feels like a mix of horror-ish, like very, 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 very light horror, and, you know, a little bit of Jason and the Argonauts feel, like stop motion aspect, as well as, you know, that classic Tom and Jerry-esque slapstick. And they make it effing work, man. They really do. Like the effect with Bad Ash is really good. I was kind of, you know, jacked up in the face, and then he like literally becomes like a skeleton. Obviously, there are some goofy elements, right? Like, you know, this is obviously the silliest and funniest out of anything Evil Dead, pretty much. And you know, you could, you know, some people could see that as a negative, where they're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. You know, they were super scary and you know, mentally manipulative in the first two, and in this one they're just stop motion skeletons making jokes. And it's like, yeah, this is a different time, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, the Deadites literally can manipulate time and space to according of what they want. Like, that's how they operate. So, I think it's really cool that the skeletons are kind of goofy and silly and they just kind of blow apart, you know, with one hit. I think it's interesting, you know, it fits the medieval time period, and I think that it gives a lot more character to the Deadites, other than just being evil for the sake of evil. Like, they have these agendas and shit. Like, it's really crazy how they operate, you know? And I think that having that action, you know, real, like, it is genuinely filmed like a medieval action film, and I think that's something like no one expected after watching Evil Dead 1 and 2. Like, you were at an effing cabin in the woods, and then this one's like Ash is, you know, swinging from ropes, and there's, you know, like I said, massive explosions and jokes and all that, and a lot of slapstick, of course. And I think that really does work again with this franchise. Obviously, Ash versus Evil Dead kind of continues the horror comedy route, and then, you know, you get Evil Dead 2013 and Rise from Hell, which are more straight horror films. But that's really great. You know, that's where Evil Dead is able to kind of not necessarily lose its ground or lose its footing, but also kind of, you know, find it at the same time, right? Like, Evil Dead is not just horror. It's not just comedy. It's not just action. It's kind of an amalgamation of all of them, you know what I mean? And I think it's really cool. So yeah, I mean, you're getting great effects. This one does feel a bit tame for Sam Raimi, and not in the sense of like violence and gore, but in the sense that, you know, when you watch Evil Dead 1 and 2, or even like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which that's either out now or will be out, you know, soon. But you have like these really close shots, or you have like these crazy filter effects. You know how Sam Raimi's visual style is. This doesn't feel as pumped down your throat with his style as maybe I wanted it to. There are definitely a lot of, you know, scenes where, you know, Ash is in the windmill or whatever, and he's kind of freaking out, and the camera's going haywire, and, you know, like Bad Ash is like growing out of him. They're kind of spider walking in the woods, or obviously there's the shot where Ash is getting chased by the Deadite, and it's first person, and like the trees are splitting. I mean, you know, there's a lot of production value in this, but a lot of this really is focused on like battle scenes, and especially the end fight with, you know, Sheila and Bad Ash and the skeletons and all that, skeleton Deadites and all that. And I think, you know, that's where this movie really had the bulk of its attention. And that's not to say the other stuff isn't good. It just feels like maybe there should have been a little more emphasis on that visual style that made the first two, you know, effing popular in the first place. But again, that's not a whole much of a negative. It's just something maybe that Sam could have taken a little bit of advantage of. So it's a small negative for me, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, man, I think that they really nailed the action and the comedy here. Again, it feels like an adventure. It feels like a genuine, like, Lord of the Rings, Uncharted feel to it, you know, or like or Tomb Raider, Tintin even. You know, it's like a swashbuckling fun time. And I know there's Deadites and explosions and all that, but, you know, they really make it feel bigger in scope than, you know, what the budget was. Like, you know, I watched the behind the scenes, and they had like, you know, a small broom closet worth of Deadite skeletons. So like they would, you know, film one shot, and then they'd take the costume off a skeleton, put it on another skeleton to make it seem like they have this massive army, right? And yeah, there's a few moments where they're doing like an Uruk-hai, you know, Helm's Deep type of shot, where like you're kind of panning and you're seeing, you know, all the massive army, and you can tell there's just some like guys, like just some random dudes or like random women in like, you know, really crappy made costumes, and you can see their freaking eyes, and it just, you know, like you're looking at a skeleton, you know, like a skeleton, and then just some dude in a suit, you know what I mean? Obviously it's 1992, this is not the biggest budget in the world, but that kind of did take me out, you know what I mean? Because the Deadites are supposed to be dead and zombies and all that, and you just, like, if you really look, you could just see a guy, you know what I mean, or just like a girl, and you're like, oh, well, you know, okay. It's not horrible, you know, it doesn't bring me out too much, but it does kind of suspend my disbelief a little bit too much, where I'm like, I'm seeing just a person in a suit, but that's actually a Deadite skeleton, you know what I mean? So something like that where I feel like they could have taken a little bit more effort. I don't know, maybe like hide the eyes better. Who knows? Put like another effing veil over him. I got no clue. But, you know, it is still really cool that they were able to kind of do something completely different, completely effing nuts compared to the first two. And again, have it feel complete and you know, part of this trilogy. And it doesn't feel like, oh, they got rid of the horror. Oh, it's not my Evil Dead. Like I said, like it feels genuine to this franchise. And that's something not, you know, it's like Scream 7 being you know, a G-rated comedy. Like, that would feel completely out of effing left field. But because we know from these first two movies, the Deadites mentally manipulate people, and yeah, they kill you, and they're horrible, and they're evil, because they're demons from hell, but they're also, you know, like, funny and goofy and silly, and they kind of do whatever they want, you know what I mean? So that's what's really cool about it. And I think that, you know, obviously the action is great. The choreography is actually really good, like when Ash is fighting the skeletons, and he's, you know, kind of like he's doing it, you know what I mean? He's flipping around, he's beating skeletons up, and, you know, he's fighting nothing, or he's fighting you know, well, yeah, he's fighting the air, and then, like, they composite a stop-motion skeleton in, you know, and that kind of, you know, lends itself to the cheesiness, but it also feels exquisitely, you know, Deadite and Evil Dead, I think, which is really, really great. And I think, like I said, they Sheila, I think, you know, she's basically Arwen, but, like, more helpless. Pretty much, yeah, she's hot, and, you know, her as evil Sheila is interesting how they do that. So, like, obviously, she's there for a reason as a character. She's not, you know, exceptionally well written or anything, but I think, you know, she's basically just there to be candy for Ash. But at the same time, when she does get possessed, it kind of gives Ash a reason to, you know, they call him a coward. They're like, oh, you're a freaking coward. You just want to go back to the present, you idiot. Get the fudge out of here. You know what I mean? Here's your stupid droplet or whatever that Merlin the wizard guy gives him. He's like, yeah, just piss off and leave. We'll fight these Deadites on our own. And then Ash is kind of like, you know, literally Ash is a loser. Like, I know people, like, idolize this character, but Ash Williams is a loser. He's a loner and a loser. He goes from the first movie, literally just standing there with a broomstick or a shotgun, like, what do I do? To, you know, losing his mind in 2, to eventually, in this film, kind of learning the lesson and realizing that he, you know, he has a responsibility to help these people. He feels like he has that responsibility. And he grows as a character and becomes the badass, you know, Deadite killing Ash that we all love him as. And I think that's what's really cool. You know, he's not the same character in 1 or even 2. He literally ends this movie, the canonical ending at least, as a hero, which is really, really cool. And then, of course, we get to the you know, TV show, which will be next. But I think they really nailed it, man. Like, really. Like, there's a few cheesy shots that I think they could have, you know, they kind of Phantom Menaced it in a way. Like, you know, in the Phantom Menace where there's, like, that really beautiful shot of Padme in that red dress, and you can clearly see, like, a fucking wire plugged into the wall, and it's like, George Lucas forgot to unplug it from the wall, you know, like, stupid stuff like that, where it's like, it would take you, like, 1 second to refilm, or be like, oh, shoot, we forgot the cable, you know, or something like that. Lazy things, and there's a few lazy things in this. Obviously, it's not a lazy movie, right? A big budget, a lot of care and effort went into this, obviously, right? Like, it shows. It's a beautiful looking movie, really great battles, really funny, a lot of action, good lore building. This is the movie that, you know, essentially makes Evil Dead 2013 and Rise canon officially, and from hell, right? You get these 3 books. 1 book is Ash, 1 book is Mia, the other book is, you know, people from Evil Dead Rise. And that's really cool. So we're getting even more world building, you know what I mean? And we're going to get more with that with the TV show, but I think they genuinely, like, they took a big swing and they hit that freaking baseball man. They got a motherfucking home run for sure, because they really, really wanted to do something different. And yeah, you could say, oh, it's not as scary. Oh, it's a little cheesy. Oh, it's corny. It's too funny. It's too much in a slapstick. But that is the essence of Evil Dead. Evil Dead is not just horror. It's also not just comedy. Again, they're able to find that balance, which they started with 2, and this one, again, they pretty much abandoned the horror, sadly. There's, like, a few, I don't want to say scary moments, but, like, Evil Dead moments where Ash is in the pit fighting the she-bitch or whatever he calls her. Or no, the she-bitch is the one with the pot. The weird bog, I think they call her the bog witch or something, or the bog something, in, like, the spike room and all that with the blood geyser. So there's some moments, yeah, obviously, you know, Ash gets chased by the Deadites in the first-person perspective, and you see, like, the little ashes, which obviously you can tell it's a bit dated. You know, they push on Ash's nose. You can tell it's all composited. But what do you do in the early '90s? You know what I mean? They didn't really have $1 million bucks to make it look like Avatar, or, you know, Rise of Skywalker, or, you know, something like that, Endgame. So it looks, you know, admittedly a little corny because we're in 2024 now, and this came out in 1992. But you know, you kind of have to take these movies with the time period when they were released, right? You can't be like, oh, this is actually really bad, poorly made, stupid. It's like, well, that was the best in 1992. You know what I mean? So Obviously, there are some arguments to be made of if it holds up or whatnot, but I think for the most part it does. Again, when I watch a franchise, I basically throw myself into the lore, and now, I'm not going to say I'm the smartest Evil Dead fan, but I know the lore like the back of my hand. Like, I'm a massive Evil Dead franchise fanatic. I am. Like, I genuinely like to know as much as I can about the franchises I'm into, and I think they, upon knowing how the Deadites operate and what they're able to do with manipulating things, it's pretty cool, you know what I mean? And again, it is genuinely funny. There's some really funny moments. I think there's some good editing, some good action. Obviously, the choreography is great. The cinematography is really great. Again, it feels very grand in scope, almost like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, it's like bargain bin Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, in terms of the budget, but it still looks good, you know what I mean? I think what this trilogy is really, really effing good at is taking a really low budget and making that feel like a very high budget. Obviously not every shot, but they do a pretty good job. Sam does a pretty good job of directing this trilogy. And this ends, the canonical ending is, of course, where Ash goes back to the present. He's working at S-Mart, the store, and another Deadite follows him home, and basically this simulates Ash. Obviously he doesn't chop her up in the story, he just kind of shoots her a bunch of times with the shotgun, which, they do establish in the lore that the only way to get rid of a Deadite is bodily dismemberment, and he doesn't bodily dismember her, he just shoots her a bunch of times with a bunch of shotgun shells. He doesn't, blow her head off or nothing. She's fully intact when she dies. I get it, they wanted it to be a little bit more light in violence and gore. But, different Deadite, different rules, I suppose. I don't want to consider that canon breaking or lore breaking because Sam's not an idiot and he thought all this through. But, I do wish that there was a little bit... It sounds really fucked up. I wish there was more dismemberment. I wish there were heads rolling, But, that's how you kill them, if you know the lore. So, it's not that bad. But, there's a few things that are like, that could have been a little bit different or whatnot. But, again, the ending kind of, insinuates that Ash is just destined to fight these freaking things forever. And we'll get to that with the show. But the version that I watched with the director's cut, 96 minutes, is where Ash accidentally takes, the wrong amount of, nose drop looking things in his mouth. And he goes back, he goes to the far future where it's like Fallout. This is Fallout 5. With Ash Williams, you know what I mean? And the whole world's jacked up, and of course he's like, I slept too long or whatever, and it ends. And it is an ending that obviously it's non-canon. It literally makes no effing sense when you look at the TV show and you actually know the lore. If anything, it's a gag ending, which I don't really like that they do non-canon gag endings. I think that the ending should kind of be synonymous across any version. But I think that, the real canonical ending of Ash working at S-Mart, kind of fighting these Deadites forever, is a cool ending. And we're going to get to the season 1 of Ash vs. Evil Dead next, and that'll kind of go more into him and his life and what he's doing. But I think genuinely, like I said, man, Sam took a big freaking swing, and I think he really nailed it. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good, and I had a lot of fun with it. Very funny, a lot of good action. And overall, man, this trilogy is a freaking blast. If you can stomach some blood, knowing it's all fake and corn syrup and all that, for the sake of filming, obviously if I saw a guy get his head chopped off in real life, I'd vomit my insides out. But knowing that this is all fake, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. I'm not some kind of weird masochist killer, okay? I'm normal. But, me being so much into these films, watching all this blood and gore, it doesn't even affect me because I know it's fake. That's kind of the burden of, really loving movies, is that it's kind of hard to be, super duper scared by a horror movie because I'm like, oh, it's fake. Oh, that person oh my god, he just got sliced in the face. Oh, it's fake. Huh. It's still gross and it's weird, but I don't I don't screaming. I don't lose sleep over these movies, but I like how they're made, and I think it's really interesting how they, how Sam literally made a different vibe for every movie, yet all three of these movies still feel cohesive and a whole, which is really cool. So tell me down below in the comments what you thought about Army of Darkness, aka Evil Dead 3. What is your favorite version, man? We got freaking 100 versions. We got the theatrical, we got the extended, we got director's cut. Obviously, I like the director's cut the best, even though it has the non-canon ending. It's so fun, but I kind of wish they had the real ending in there at the end. But overall, man, Army of Darkness is a freaking blast. It's a lot of fun, very funny, really good action, and it feels very grand in scope considering the budget. even though it's bigger, it was still a lot of fun. And yeah, I cannot wait to watch Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 1. Again, give me a little bit of time for that. It is a full season of TV and not an hour-and-a-half long movie. And I do have schoolwork and all that, so give me a little bit of time, but I will try to get to it as soon as possible. And then don't worry, once we finish the Evil Dead franchise, we're going right back into the MCU. So tell me down below in the comments again what you thought about Army of Darkness. And out of these three so far, what's your favorite and why? Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.